I'd like to call this meeting, the Clay County Commission, to order. We will start with our invocation. Bonnie Nielsen will be leading us in that. So if you'd like to step forward, and by the way, for anyone else speaking tonight, make sure that the microphone is on, the green light will be lit. Speak clearly into the microphone and state your name, and then please proceed. So please proceed.
Okay, thank you. I'm Bonnie Nielsen. I'm here as the president of the women's group for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here tonight. Our Father in heaven, at the beginning of this meeting, we pause to give thee thanks for the many blessings that we enjoy, for the blessings of our life of health and strength, for the freedom that we enjoy in this great nation. And we're thankful for the neighborhoods and communities that we live in and the good people that we're blessed to be surrounded by. We're grateful for thy Son, Jesus Christ, and for his example that he has shown for us to show us to care for one another and to love and serve our fellow men. We pray for thy Spirit to be here in this meeting this night, that the proceedings of this meeting will be blessed with the spirit of unity and understanding. We pray that thou wilt bless the men and women here with wisdom in their decisions, as well as the leaders of our country, all throughout our nation, that they will be blessed with wisdom to make wise decisions that will be for the benefit of those they serve. Again, we express our gratitude to thee and thank thee for thy many blessings. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Nolte? Here. Commissioner Withington?
Here.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
Here.
Commissioner Carpenter? Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
That brings agenda. Is there a motion related to approval of this evening's agenda?
Move to approve.
Been made for the approval of the agenda. Are there any comments or questions? Any discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. That brings us to public comments. Are there any?
The consent agenda allows the Commission to act upon items considered to be routine and approved in one motion. These may include items that have been reviewed by the Commission in a prior session. There will be no separate discussion unless a Commissioner requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. There is one item on the consent agenda this evening. That's Resolution 2023-284, approving invoice payments from August 24th to September 1st. There are 117 invoices totaling $1,152,273.47.
If no questions are being raised by any commissioners, I'll entertain a motion. Wagner.
Thank you. Move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Motion has been made for approval of tonight's consent agenda. Discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Next on our agenda is the regular 85, Administrator.
Resolution 2023-285 is approving payments for the Clay County for the prosecutor's office. And I apologize, I don't have the current version up of the agenda. So thank you. Resolution 2023-285 is approving invoices for the Clay County Prosecutor's Office from August 24th through September 1st. There are 4 invoices totaling $802.90.
Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, if... Okay, there you are. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Move to approve 2023-285.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2023-285. Any discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner,
Aye.
Commissioner Withington,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
I recuse myself.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes 5 in favor, 1 recusal.
Next on our agenda is 2020.
Resolution 2023-287 is consideration of approving surplus disposal list for the judicial information system with the courts as stipulated in the Code of Ordinances. This is brought forward by our county auditor and the JIS department, and Auditor Herbert is here to provide some information to the commission.
Yes, Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor. I'm joined by our JIS Director, Brian Swing, and essentially Resolution 2023-287 before you is a process that we have to get commission approval for any disposal of capital assets in the county. Essentially, you have 96 items, mostly desktop computers that JIS is looking to dispose of. They're rather dated pieces of equipment. And so according to our county code, Chapter 37, Article 7, the auditor inventories all those items to confirm the serial numbers and the asset tags and identification information before they're disposed of, and then remove those from our records. So we're happy to answer any questions. If anything else wants to be added, then it's essentially all we have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Commissioner Withington?
When we say dispose, are we selling these, or what are we doing with these? Because I see there's some iPads and everything. Are those that far out of date?
Yeah, a lot of these, if I recall, and I'll let the Director Swing speak to this as well, were from 2016, 2018, a little outdated. He can speak more to that, I think. But I would say that, yes, these are being sent to a e-recycler in town in North Kansas City. And so we scrub it of all county information, of course, and then send it to them. And I think a lot of the issue is instead of the typical surplus auction process, those electronics aren't really something that's taken. And so this is something that can be, if I'm not mistaken, repurposed in the community even by doing it in this manner. So
Yes, that was what I was getting at, is if we were going to, get rid of this as e-waste, as to where it could be repurposed and reused for somebody else. And I'm glad that you also had talked about scrubbing them, because that was gonna be my next question. How do we ensure that these have been scrubbed so there's no county data on them?
Yeah, this place down in North Kansas City, they do make sure it's all scrubbed and
Okay.
clean of any data. And they also repurpose it,
Okay,
resell it themselves.
okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Further discussion or questions? Commissioner Wagner?
Thank you. First of all, thanks for bringing this to us today. My question is really under what is said under the funding overview, where it mentions the office supply number 301 gives about $6,400 in $6,400 there, and then there's a contract amount for $2,150. My question basically is how to view those dollars, is whether one is to be viewed as the value or what we currently value that equipment to be versus what it will cost to have the e-recycler take these off our hands. Or maybe it's something entirely different. I'm just trying to understand what the dollar amounts mean on our funding overview.
certainly. So what that is, the $6,300 figure, $6,400 is the available unencumbered budget that's left to spend, and I certify that as such on the face of the resolution. But then the budget amount, contracted amount is the cost from the vendor, the e-waste recycler, to dispose of this equipment for us. As to the value of the assets, I'd have to go back and give you that. The fully depreciated value as it stands now. It's not always a one-for-one that, should they be auctioned, that we're going to get the same amount as
Sure.
the asset value, of course.
Sure.
But
Well, I was, based on your earlier comments, you're looking at what, 7, 8 years of depreciation against that. By now, that's not really worth a whole lot. But just wanted to understand how to read what was there. So thank you, appreciate it. I'm good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion related to?
Yes, move to approve 2023-287.
Motion has been made for approval of 2023-287. Further discussion? Seeing none, we will recognize to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner,
Aye.
Commissioner Withington,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
That brings us to the final item.
2023 Ordinance 22 is approving an ordinance modification to amend the 2023 Parks fee schedule to add fishing boat rentals to the fee schedule. And Deputy Director of Parks, John Davis, is here to provide information.
Please proceed.
John Davis, Deputy Director of Parks. This is a request to add rental rates for the 2 fishing boats we purchased with this year's budget to the 2023 schedule. We used to have rental fishing boats, and their lifespan ended a few years back, so we've trying to return them to our rental program. For full-day use, we're looking at $175. Half-day use, which would be a 4-hour, is $100. Hourly use with a 2-hour minimum would be $65.
Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, is there,
I guess.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Carpenter.
So, thank you. Just to clarify, on the hourly use, is that 65 for 2 hours, or is it 65 per hour?
Per hour, so 2-hour minimum,
So it's 65 per hour?
yes.
Well, so it costs 130 for 2 hours, which would be the 2-hour minimum? I'm just trying to understand how that would. Yeah, right. I mean, you'd probably just go ahead and do the 4-hour at 100 rather than 2 hours at 130.
There's still, if you take it out for 2 hours, we still have, when they bring them back, and somebody else wants them for another 2 hours, there's cleaning and fueling and all that, so there's still a lot of.
No, of course, yeah, it makes sense that there would be a 2-hour minimum. I just, at these numbers, I'm not sure anybody would ever utilize if they're gonna pay more for 2 hours than they would pay for 4 hours, right?
Correct.
All right.
We were looking at the same thing over here.
Would we wanna edit that in any way to have the 65 be for 2 hours?
I'm good
Cost
with that.
65?
That makes sense, I think.
I'm good with that if that's.
Well, I guess that would be my recommendation, if everybody's good with that, to amend it to reflect that.
If we're going to do that, would you recommend an amendment or maybe just instruction by the commission?
I think we just do it by instruction. That we're going to change the fishing boat, really it's just a 2-hour price. It's not an hourly price. So I can't imagine we really would want to rent it by the hour for the reasons you just, set out. I can't imagine we could, by that time, would actually use it effectively. So maybe a 2-hour price, a half-day price, which is 4 hours, and then the full-day price. That makes sense to me. And so just remove the 2 hours.
Okay, I think if this sounds like it's a good plan, we'll go ahead and open it up for discussion, and then we will just get a consensus of the commission and go from there. Is that acceptable as opposed to amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, I do make a motion tonight, Commissioners, because my screen seems to be getting a little twitchy here. They disappear, then they reappear. So I'm going to try to get you guys, as I see, so I'll be looking for hand signals as well. Commissioner Johnson, I believe you were the next one to speak.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so Commissioner Carpenter pointed out correctly that, so a 2-hour rental would be more than a half-day rental. However, if you don't have an hourly rate, a separate hourly rate, then what happens for like a half-day rental who goes an hour over or 2 hours over? Would you have to charge them the full day, or would you charge them the extra hour at an hourly rate, which is, I think, what we do with the other pontoon boats?
Yes.
So I would think you'd have to have an hourly rate separate if you want it, and instead of just a 2-hour rate, I would think you'd have to have an hourly rate that maybe has a 2-hour minimum.
Let me
I don't
look
know,
at-
follow what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Okay, I'm looking at the pontoons were a 2-hour minimum, 65 to,
And so the pontoons, if you were to rent them for a half day, which by the way I have, and it's a beautiful lake to be on, these are great rentals, but so you rent it for a half day, and let's say you end up going out for five hours, you know, and you got an extra hour, so you pay an extra hour as opposed to an entire full day rental on that normally, because there's an hourly rate that they could tack onto that, right?
right,
So I would think we'd have to do the same thing with the fishing boats, right?
yes.
But the hourly rate we have now for the fishing boats, just a simple 2-hour minimum, is more than the half day. So would it be better just to lower that hourly rate altogether? When you look at the hourly rate and the half day and the full day rate compared to the pontoon boats, the hourly rates are the same, but the half day and full day rates for a pontoon boat are much higher. So I would think that the hourly rate would have to be much lower for the fishing boat, or the half day and day rate would have to be much higher for the fishing boat. I prefer the former.
Let's probably move the hourly rate to 35 or 30.
That's what I would think.
I agree with that, and can we amend, or do I need to come back?
Since I think there's a lot of debate here how to read this, my recommendation is we pull it
Yeah.
and we bring it back to you next week, if the commission's okay with that. Because I'd rather it be very clear on what the rates are.
Did you follow what I was saying about the hourly rate and the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. My apologies, I'll bring it back next week.
By the way, go ahead and hang around up there for a moment. I think what I'd like to do is there were some other commissioners who were wanting to speak, so if we can get everybody's comments and then we can pull it, that way you'll get a full picture of what the thought is among commissioners. Commissioner Lawson, I thought you were, I thought you were next.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused. I mean, we've rented the pontoons up there, and a great day on the water, that's for sure. But, so the rates that you've got, the only thing that we seem to be a bone of contention is the hourly thing. So if I keep it for 2 hours, whether it's the fishing boat or whatever, you clearly got the hours marked. Why, if I go out for 2 hours on a pontoon and I happen to stay for 3, why can't it just be half of what the 2-hour minimum is? You know, charge them $35 extra or 30, whatever it is, 30 and 50 cents or 32.
The main reason for that is because they're so popular, there is a backlog of wanting to rent them, so we try not to encourage them keeping them out after hours.
Yeah, the only time we've ever gone is during the week. We've never gone on the weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's crazy up there on the weekend.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah. So what do you do then? It's going to be an hour, they're going to pay the minimum, which would be like if they stay out on a fishing boat and they are over an hour, they pay 65 extra?
I think we're gonna come back and it would be
Oh, okay.
the hourly rate for
Okay.
how many hours after they're gone.
Yeah, but honestly, I'm not sure that the hourly rate makes as much sense on the fishing boat because the rates are compacted. So, for example, the difference between the 2 hour, if we do a 2 hour at 65 and a half day at 100, I'm not sure what hourly, there's only $35 between the two. So if we do a $35 hourly rate, well, you're just gonna keep it for the half day regardless. Because the numbers are compacted, I'm not sure how an hourly rate works well on the fishing boat side.
I think the only question is, what if What if they rent it for a half day, 4 hours is a half day, but keep it for 5?
Yeah,
Do we
so
charge it for a
that one is a
full
little
day?
bit, there's less compaction between the
Yeah.
half day and the full day.
Yeah.
So you probably could do an hourly beyond the half day.
Yeah.
I just don't see how you do an hourly between 2 and 4.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. You know, I don't fish much, but the fishermen I know don't just do it for 2 hours, right? And so I tend to wonder how much business we do in this hourly fashion. And I tend to wonder, since we do deposits based on those reservations, if the goal of the hourly is just if someone wants to do something between a half and a full day, and I'd be very curious to know how many people actually, or by percentage, how many people actually go that route, because it seems to me that since both the fishing boat and the pontoon would seem to be more for a fishing purpose as opposed to a straight up recreational type of purpose, the usage is different, and therefore the hours that are used for those are different. Am I wrong, or am I not looking at this right?
No, your pontoon boats, I would say, you're gonna rent them a half day or you're gonna rent them a full day.
Yeah.
That's our normals. It's probably pretty rare that they rent them for 2-hour minimum. I mean, unless they're just going out for a special occasion, take a troll and come back. It's very rare. So it's either
Right.
half day or full day.
Yeah. Well, so I guess my point is that, to me, your structure for for the hourly is because you want to push renters into a half day or day long use, as opposed to having to clean it up over and over again, which I'm not sure you would anyway. But I know you're going to come back. I just had to throw out there, I would simply say the cost structure should reflect more of the desire to push people where you want them to rent. And if someone does 5 hours instead of 4, then if you want to surcharge it off an hourly rate, or if you just want to take it off of the deposit, you've got a couple of options there to again get people to use it for the amount of time you want them to use it. I'll just leave it at that. I am not an expert in marina fees, and so I'm just gonna.
So I think.
I've hit my limit right there.
To some degree, having an opportunity for structure, because you're right, we want people to rent these for whatever time they want to have them. However, we also have scheduling on those. And
Right.
so if I say I want it for 2 hours and then we plan to clean it up at the end of that 2 hours, we may rent it again. Well, if you did it for 2 hours and you keep it out for 3 hours, there are consequences to that, right? So now we may not be ready for the next individual that has rented it, and so we need to figure out how to structure that.
Well, and I guess, again, you've got a deposit that's required there. I think for most folks, they love getting all of their deposit back, and if you're late, you're gonna lose it. So to me, that's an incentive, so.
That was actually, Administrator, that was a point I was thinking of, is that people to keep it out longer than they had reserved it for, that certainly impacts, another person or people who might be renting it for the next time through. So you got to have some kind of a system there. But yeah, you've pretty much covered that. Is there anyone else wishing to comment? I see none. So do you feel that there's enough information with a feel from the commission?
Yes, sir.
Very good. In that case, we will take this off the agenda and we will just bring it back at whatever time staff feels it is appropriate. Likely next week.
We'll bring it back next week for a proposal for you all. We have these are brand new boats, and we certainly want to make those available to our fishermen so they can use them as soon as possible. So we will bring this back next week.
Thank you. I figured you would, but I just thought I'd give you a little attitude just in case. That concludes our regular agenda. We will be entering into our discussion items. One thing I would like to request commissioners do, and that is to wait until you are recognized, because I can't control the mics quite in the same way as usual from this console for whatever reason. So we can keep I will try to continue to scan the group here. So if somebody wants to speak, just give me a signal and I will be recognizing you in the order that I perceive you to be here. That brings us to discussion items. First item under discussion is presentation of annual external audit for 2022 that was performed by Hood and Associates. And Administrator?
Yes, so as part of our annual process, we have an external auditing firm that comes in and audits our annual books, and this is for 2022. So I'd like to introduce County Auditor Herbert, who will introduce our external auditor, who will do a presentation for you.
Please proceed.
Yes, Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor. As commissioners know, every year we are to get an annual audit from an independent external auditing firm. This is required under statute, under Chapter 50. It's required for any municipal debt we have as far as reports to rating agencies, the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board, as well as for federal grant reporting purposes to show compliance with those dollars. So this is part of that process. Our audit is completed by Hood & Associates CPAs, and I'm pleased to present, we have here tonight, we have a senior manager, Michael Keenan, who's kind of the lead for the audit of Clay County. So with that, I'm happy to bring him up.
Good evening. I believe in your packet you've received...
Oh, would you go ahead and identify yourself for the audio recording?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Michael Keenan with Hood & Associates, Senior Manager. Again, here to present the results of the financial and compliance audit for the fiscal year ended December 31, 2022. In your packets, I think you had received PDF copies of 3 documents. The annual comprehensive financial report, the single audit, which relates to the expenditures of federal awards, and then our required communications and management letter. And to summarize these 3 documents, I have a little PowerPoint presentation that I'll go over and then try to answer any questions that you may have. I'm technology challenged. Oh, okay, I was trying to push this button, thank you. A little bit about Hood & Associates. We serve Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. We also go through what's called a peer review, and that's where an outside independent auditing firm will come in and review our internal quality controls. And we're pleased to report we have been awarded the highest rating as a result of that peer review. We're members of various professional organizations, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the AICPA, also the AICPA Government Audit Quality Center. One member happens to be myself as a Government Service Audit Team member who reviews Government Finance Officers Association's Special Review Committee reports, and I'll get into a little bit more as Clay County is going to submit this annual comprehensive financial report to the GFOA for participation and achievement for excellence in financial reporting. Okay, the scope of the audit again is the annual comprehensive financial report. And as I just went over, the county is going to submit this to the GFOA for this first year for this prestigious award, which is a Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting. What that entails, you may notice that this document is a little larger than some of the audits that you've seen in previous years. That's because this includes an introductory section, which is a transmittal letter, and some other documents. And then the basic financial statements is a financial section. And the last section of this report is called the statistical section, which gives 10 years worth of comparative data, which isn't presented in your normal basic financial statements. Again, and after my presentation, Victor has a presentation that will kind of go over key metrics of what's in the annual comprehensive financial report, as well as some financial data. Also the scope is the single audit, Again, and that's the audit of the county's compliance over expenditures of federal awards. In 2022, the county had 3 major programs. That was the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, the American Rescue Plan Act, or the ARPA funding, and the Child Support Enforcement. Our responsibilities as the auditors is to conduct our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards, as well as the uniform guidance. The first 2 standards relate to financial statement, to auditing that have to be followed by all governmental auditors, and the last is uniform guidance, is the guidance that directs what auditors do as related to testing and reporting for the single audit and expenditures of federal awards. We're also responsible to plan our audit to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatements. What that means is we take a risk-based approach. Again, we don't test all transactions. We look at those of higher risk and also get an understanding of the county's internal control structure in order for us to plan and perform our audit. We're also responsible to report on internal controls over financial reporting, as well as compliance with laws and regulations. Okay, the Auditing Standards Board of the American Institute of Certified Public Accounts, again, the AICPA, again, which dictate what auditors have to do with regarding to financial statement auditors. Audits recommend that we communicate these matters to the governing board. The first illegal acts, none came to our attention as a result of performing our audit procedures. Changes in significant accounting policies. The county did implement Government Accounting Standards Board, the GASB Statement Number 87, that relates to leases. What that did for the county, as well as other state and local governments, is prior to that, there might have been an operating lease for a facility, for instance, that wasn't reported on your balance sheet. So now it's reported as a right-to-use asset and a lease liability. In essence, they've made all leases that meet this category financing lease or right-to-use, where you report the asset or intangible asset and amortize that as depreciation expense, and you record the regular lease liability and amortize those payments between principal and interest. Doesn't change your budgeting. You're still paying the same amount of those lease revenues or collecting those. It's just a change in financial reporting that all governmental entities have had to adopt. Also, pleased to report we had no difficulties or disagreements with management, and we had cooperation and access to the books and records, and were provided anything that we selected for testing. Now, compliance and financial audit really addresses 3 basic questions. The first question, are the financial statements free of material misstatement? And our response to that is, we have issued an unmodified opinion that indeed the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. Again, the unmodified opinion is similar to what people call a clean opinion. That's the highest level of an opinion that external auditors can provide on financial statements. So that's very good. The second question, are internal controls over financial reporting adequately designed and operating effectively? Our response to that is we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we considered to be material weaknesses. Again, had we done so, we're required by our profession to report that to the governing body. And finally, did Clay County comply in all material respects with finance-related laws and regulations? No non-compliance was noted with finance-related laws and regulations that govern the county's operations. Again, when we're looking at the single audit federal awards, that's also was an unmodified or clean opinion. We had no findings related to these 3 programs. Again, very, very positive results as far as the audit goes. We also have a document, management letter comments and suggestions for best practices and possible improvements in internal control. Again, we noted a budget violation, and again, management has provided their recommendations on how they're going to alleviate that. It's a kind of a common occurrence that happens when you're doing at year end. Certain transactions occur that you don't really know are coming. And also there's some future accounting pronouncements. We're down to only 3 or 4. This list used to be quite long. And of those listed, I really don't see any that are going to have a potential significant effect on the county's financial statements. And finally, Hood and Associates, CPAs certainly appreciate the opportunity to serve as the auditors for Clay County, Missouri. Really have special thanks to Victor and Benjamin, the staff in the auditor's office, as well as all the other county personnel that we met and asked questions or got information. Very professional, and it's really nice when we come to audit where we don't have to fix the books. We can actually come in and audit. So hats off to the auditor's office as well as the other county personnel. So that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions that I might be able to respond to?
I'll ask the commission if there are any questions. By the way, thank you for the report. I think we're all gratified that it reflects well on Clay County, and so certainly we appreciate and certainly we appreciate the work of staff, of Victor and everyone else involved in providing you with these materials and doing the operations that resulted in this positive report.
Absolutely.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I will say that if you have questions later on about the audit or anything else, certainly you get my contact information from Victor and call me or email me. Again, as those come up, really we're open to that. And I'm going to turn it over to Victor to give his presentation. And thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor. I will try my best to be very brief in this presentation because I know everyone's waiting for the NFL season opener and the Kansas City Chiefs. So presentation here, as Mr. Keenan alluded to, about our efforts to submit to the GFOA for a COA, a Certificate of Achievement in Excellence in Financial Reporting. This is another step, similar to, as you've seen, we now are recipients of the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from GFOA since 2022 and repeated in 2023. We've made an effort now to get the COA. After this, just so you know, I think the goal that we should strive for is something called a popular annual financial report. The purpose of that, as well as the COA, is really to make financial statements more digestible for the governing body, for the public, more easily understandable, so they can, really grasp what's happening with their government and their tax dollars. If we were to get the PAFR, that award along with this COA, it would be what's called in a geek finance world, the triple crown of the GFOA. So anyway, that's a lot of what this is about. So the purpose of my presentation is really to give you kind of the highlights, visually pleasing graphic presentation of this COA effort, and happy to answer any questions throughout and at the end. So as Mr. Keenan alluded to in the transmittal letter, the introductory section, we really kind of give one-year changes, look at the broad picture of the county in a broader context, not just financial statements. So what is the county government's role in the county overall, in the state of Missouri, et cetera, economically? And so we begin with population. The county's growing, 13% growth rate over the past 10 years. 30,000 new residents to where we are today at 257,000 as of July 1st of 2022. Likewise, assessed valuation, again, in the transmittal letter, we talk about, how it's gone up 67% in 10 years countywide with that growing population from 3.5 billion to 5.8 billion, the one-year change being 400 million, or a 6.4% increase. Pretty soon, you're going to see the 2023 assessed valuation. We're going to bring to you setting the property tax levies by October 1st, so we'll see the final 2023 assessed valuation figures. Likewise, sales and use tax numbers, revenues have increased from 28.5 million to 51.3 million over 10 years, or an 80% increase. The one-year change is a 10.4% increase, or from 46.5 million in 21 to 51.3 million. This is sales and use taxes. You get a use tax on your equivalent sales tax rate. And finally, on the transmittal letter, something I point out is how you have the unemployment rate in Clay County consistently coming in under the state of Missouri and the United States at 2% at the end of 2022. That has come up so far this year, but is still also lower than the state of Missouri and the United States. So that's kind of big picture. The transmittal letter introductory section, we also talk about list of principal officials, such as administration and staff and the commission. The organizational chart, we talk about, what is Clay County known for? It's tourist attractions, and we talk about the strategic plan, things that give the citizens a broader context of how the finances fit into the overall context. It's meant to really, really accompany the next section of the financial section, and where we have the management's discussion and analysis. So now we get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty of the finances. And I begin with changes in net position from 2021 to 2022. You can think of this net position almost like essentially your equity of assets less liabilities. And essentially we had roughly a 26-27% increase year over year, from 100.7 million to 127.3 million in our net position. Now, I'll certainly note that a lot of that we can attribute, in our opinion, to the American Rescue Plan Act, right? One-time funding, greater assets on hand, cash on hand, but also higher revenues, sales tax revenues. Expenditures did go up in some categories for financial reporting purposes, but not as much as revenues. So that's really kind of a high-level overview of where we're at as of December 31st, 2022. Next, I'll move on to, what is that net position made up of, that $127 million, right? 100 million of that, less depreciation, is your capital assets. Now, when you, as we referred to about how, what is the debt on those assets, it is actually lower than that, 87.6 million, or 68.8% of your net position. So I bring this to your attention in that a lot of your net position isn't readily liquid, nor necessarily what you'd receive as far as if you were to sell your assets. But you can see kind of the main categories of them. Being your buildings, your highway infrastructure, right? Roads and culverts is a lot of what makes up the county's net worth or equity position. But certainly a good amount of that is also your fund balance, your cash on hand, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. Some good news, I would say, from a financial standpoint, is our debt did continue to decrease. This is from, as you can see, certificates of participation went down roughly 3.4 million, and it's a 16% decrease, 7.1 million overall. So finally, that's really a real quick and dirty discussion about the financial section, which is the largest section of your basic financial statements. The last part is the unaudited statistics, which we give you a 10-year look back at the county. And I would encourage commissioners to really dive into that ending section. It gives you a lot of helpful information in discussions with the public. If you look at the county's net position over the last 10 years, you can notice that we kind of hit a nadir in 2020 and then have been increasing as of the end of 2022. Also, you have a fund balance. This is really my last slide. We did see an increase of $5.7 million or 13.2% to $49 million fund balance, all funds together. Of that, 42.3% or $20.9 million is what we call the general fund, which includes numerous funds, not just our principal general fund. So you see it's increased. I'll make a comment on that kind of asterisk jump in 2018. That was the original certificates of participation issue. It gave the county a lot of, resources on hand, but of course we refunded those. And so that would explain kind of that aberration and blip over time. So that's really, I just wanted to give kind of, again, a high-level, graphically pleasing presentation of our financial report. We're excited to submit this to GFOA and seek that next award. I do want to also thank our auditors, Hood & Associates. They've been great to work with. And I especially want to thank, administration, commission, staff. The statistics took a lot of effort to get 10 years of data, good data. Ask departments for some of their, you can look at the operating indicators section, for instance. A lot of research went into it. Hopefully we'll be at a place now, it's my goal, is that this will be something we can just easily update every year and stay on par to be one of the best performing counties in the state. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And that's that.
Questions or comments? Commissioner Withington?
I just want to first say thank you for working with them and cooperating. I know there was a time where people in this county wouldn't cooperate, so that's good to hear. And then I really like this report. I especially like how on page 106 it shows that the county's property tax has gone down. You and I talked about that. You know, everybody blames the county when it comes to property taxes, but we're doing our job, right, to lower property taxes. It's everybody else that's not. But I appreciate you putting this together, and thank you, Hood & Associates, for your work too.
Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much. And again, thank you, of course, to yourself and to staff and our administrator for leading the effort on this. We certainly appreciate the ability to have this information, and certainly the numbers it reflects is a good thing for the county, so thank you. If there are no further comments or discussion on this item, we will go to the next issue, and we do not seem to have any. Next item is paternity policy, and that would be Commissioner Thompson, Administrator. Do you want to introduce that? And then I will recognize Commissioner Thompson to begin the discussion.
I would just say let's recognize Commissioner Thompson, who asked that this topic be placed on the agenda for discussion.
Very good. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is a policy that I've actually been looking at for a while, and I think there could be a possibility for some improvement, as we have not reviewed this in a number of years. But I want to start this discussion by saying that this policy is for Clay County employees and how we can best serve our community. To be clear, we are only discussing our policy as it deals with the employees of Clay County and not discussing it as independent businesses that operate within Clay County. Any change to our policy would only affect the employees of our county and not the employees from other employers. And we've had some confusion in the past. I just want to clear that up. So I've done a little bit of preliminary research, of course, with this, and it looks like there are about 3 to 4 Clay County employees who actually use our paternal leave policy annually, each year. I think there are some practical and some moral reasons to have this discussion today of parental leave. Like most employers today, Clay County is having some serious trouble attracting and retaining talented employees. Adding paid parental leave will help the county hire and keep these talented employees. And this is a practical reason to review how we are doing business here in Clay County. There's also a moral reason. Missouri has a maternal death rate that is higher than the national average and has actually increased in the recent years. The governor and the state government have invested significant resources in addressing this issue. And I think we should also explore ways that we can support mothers and families here in Clay County. As I said in the beginning, this discussion only deals with our employees here for Clay County, not independent businesses and other employers. And I would love to hear what my other fellow commissioners have to say about this, and if you are open to the idea of discussing and possibly doing a paid paternal leave for employees.
Are there any additional comments or questions? Anyone wishing to join the discussion with Commissioner Thompson? Commissioner Withington.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm in favor of giving paternal and maternity leave and paternity leave to our workers. we don't have anything set currently, do we? Or what's the current leave?
I would call HR Director Callahan up,
She was
and she
our-
could,
yeah, she was
yeah,
Hi.
talk about our current
Callahan,
policy.
HR Director. Okay, right now, they can take FML, and that's the family medical leave that they can take. Now, they do have to work here at least 1,250 hours in the 12 months prior to be eligible to take family medical leave.
Okay.
So that's 12 weeks or 480 hours that they're eligible for.
And that's fathers too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What did you have in mind?
I would think to be competitive with some of the surrounding counties and their governments, opening the discussion at 12 weeks of paid leave.
Yeah, so when I was at Cerner, with my kids, we got 3 days, and the fathers, got 3 days, and then a couple years ago, Cerner changed it to a month for the fathers. Oracle had theirs at 12 weeks. I know, I think I know there's benefits to, fathers having the 12 weeks also. There's research that shows that, that those first 12 weeks are very important for bonding, right? And I think, I'm looking at this from a father's perspective because I'm a father. I think fathers have been forgotten in that process for a long time, right? So I always saved up my PTO to make sure I could take the maximum of 2 weeks when I had my kids. But yeah, no, I think the 12 weeks is good. I think we definitely need to do something, and I think the fathers need to be looked at too.
Commissioner Lawson, I believe you were wanting to be recognized
I
next.
think that the 12 weeks is great. I'd like to see that happen. And I definitely think the fathers should be involved. Now, they can't be out playing golf. They have to be at home changing diapers and learning about all that stuff. But yeah, I think it would be admirable for us to look at that for both dads and moms. So yeah, total agreement.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Well, I just totally agree with Commissioner Lawson. I think this would be a good direction to go in. Just a quick question. You mentioned FMLA and the 12 weeks it provides. So what would the practical change be if we were to have a specific paternity policy set at 12 weeks? How would that contrast with what we have currently?
Well, there's a couple of things we would have to look at. Right now, we request if someone takes FML, that they use their sick and vacation time while they're on FML. But even while they're off, they're still accruing sick and vacation while they're having to use it. And then if they run out of time, it's unpaid FML. If they don't have enough built up prior, to the pregnancy. So is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, it is. And Commissioner Thompson mentioned it's about a 3 or 4 person per year average.
Yeah, in the last couple of years, we looked at who's taken maternity leave, FML for maternity leave, and that's the average. Right now, it's been 2 this year. The prior year, I think it was 3, and before that it was 2.
So less than 1% of
Yes.
the employee workforce. I think that's just helpful context in terms of, the extent that this would be a burden on county functions. Anyway, it has my full support. I think there's a good amount of social science at this point to indicate the wide range of benefits both for the children and the parents and for the broader community. And I think we should lead on being an employer that provides these benefits. So thank you, Commissioner Thompson.
Commissioner Johnson, would you like to be recognized?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So I'm actually a little torn on this for a number of reasons. I know a lot of companies, a lot of private industries have such policies and pay their employees to for maternity or paternity leave to stay home for whether it's 12 weeks or something else. And I think that's great. I didn't have that in my luxury when I worked in city government. I didn't have that. Neither my wife was a school teacher. What we did is we took time off and used our own vacation or holiday time, personal leave time that we've earned. The problem, I love it when private companies do that. When government agencies do that, the one concern I have is we're telling our taxpayers, because basically it's taxpayers' money that we're saying, we're using your tax dollars to pay for someone to stay home and take care of the child. Not everybody agrees with that. As far as any kind of promoting for more employees, that kind of stuff, with only, 1 or 2% that are involved in this, I don't know that that's going to help with promoting it. I think there'll be a lot more involved to taking advantage of this if we offered them to paid to stay home. You're going to see those numbers jump up a lot higher than what everybody's going to take advantage of that. Why wouldn't you? You'd be crazy not to. So anybody would take advantage of that, I would think. But you know, I would like to see if one of our issues we're trying to attract more employees, better employees. I think across the board raises would do that as well, and probably much better. So where I have some concern is that we're telling taxpayers that we're going to take your money and use it to pay for people, moms and dads, to stay home for whether it's 12 weeks or whatever the number it is. When right now, the way it works is you can take time off, you're guaranteed to have your job back, you can take time off, you can use your own time, whether it's vacation time, personal leave, whatever you call it. You can use your own time, and your job's guaranteed to come back. In addition to that, you know, once you have a kid, all sorts of tax breaks and deductions that kick in right away, including, I think the last one's $3,600 tax credit you get the day you have a baby, you know, for that year, plus the deductions. And there's all sorts of things that the government's throwing money at to kind of help that situation. At the same time, I think we got to be careful, and I'm uncomfortable telling taxpayers that we're going to take your money and pay for people to stay home and raise their children. Don't get me wrong, I've got 3 kids myself, I get the need, and when I had kids, my wife chose to stay home and raise the kids. And we decided she was going to stay home until the kids were raised all the way, and not everybody has that luxury. I know, matter of fact, I currently babysit now an infant for my niece and nephew who can't stay home. So I still I still understand the issues with raising a child because we're involved in that still today. So, but that's really my only trepidation on this is I would really like to know kind of what the people think, you know, the taxpayers think about this, and do we have any kind of data out there? Is the taxpayer supportive of this, not supportive of this? What is it? I'd be curious to know if anybody has any information on that. I don't know.
Correct. We can do some research to see for entities that have, government entities that have implemented a program, to see what data is out there. You know, and also, and certainly whatever direction commission gives us, but included as one of your strategic plans, and we have funding proposed in the '24 budget for your review, is a compensation and classification study. And as part of a compensation study, that includes all of our benefits, and how do we compare, and how do you look at that in being competitive and having those benefits, you know, for employees. So that could be a direction for the consultant to make sure they look at paternity leave and what we do versus what everybody else does, and maybe have some research that they could bring to the table for us. But it's certainly whatever the commission wants us to do. But if I'm understanding correctly, for clarification, so mother or father can take FMLA 12 weeks, guarantee their job will be here at the end of that 12 weeks, and they're allowed to take vacation, sick leave, any accrued leave that they have, comp time, to get compensated during that 12 weeks. So what I'm hearing from some of the discussion is there's some thought about providing a category of paternity leave that does not require FMLA, and that it would be paid by the county and they would not be taking any leave. Is that what I'm understanding, some of the discussion that's come up? Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Thompson, it's your kind of deal.
Yes, and I think for the mother, for the father, and even if it classifies if you adopt, because there is a bonding and a process involved with bringing in a child into your home. It's, as a mother, I know this is a huge deal, and there's serious problems that we are having right now in our country and in our state, and I feel very passionate about this, so, yeah.
I'll just make a comment and then go to you, Commissioner Johnson. Actually, I was, to use probably an antique term, I was a Mr. Mom. I ended up having my own business. My wife did not have this kind of program, certainly not to extend into the actual years. I had the ability to be very flexible in my schedule, so I spent a lot of the daytime with my children. In spite of that, they turned out pretty good. But the reason I mention that is that I do want to see the numbers on this and see what the fiscal impact is, you know, whether you're in favor or otherwise. Certainly, before we do anything, we need to understand what the numbers are so we have quantified what that is. But the reason I remarked on my own background is I do understand that fathers bond too. It's not just a mother's thing, but it's also a father's thing. And I am extremely happy that I had the ability to spend that kind of time with my children. So, but I think Commissioner Johnson certainly points out correctly that we need to understand the entirety of the issue as we go forward, and that being both the financial and the fact that we are dealing with taxpayer money. So, Commissioner Johnson raises, unless you have, were you also, Mr.
Yeah, I was.
I'll tell you, would it be okay to go ahead and recognize Commissioner? Please go ahead.
Thank you. I'll try not to be repetitive, but I will jump to the study and what's been suggested, because it strikes me that yes, we want to be good to those who work for us, and I do tend to think and agree with Commissioner Johnson that once you have a benefit that everyone knows it's there, it will be used more often. I mean, it's just going to be. But I guess if part of it is to also use this as a tool to recruit, then I think I would like to know what is out there within our competitive set, because I think that's part of the reason why if you must go there, it's because in the same way we've talked about salaries and other benefits in the past. If our competition, if you will, is doing it, then you got to catch up at some point, and I understand that. So, however that is to be captured, and I tend to think that with the small number of people who use the benefit now, not to say that more couldn't use it, but I'm just suggesting that we have a mechanism that may be coming up that allows us to do that. But the other thing that strikes me is that we would always like to think that a benefit offered out of the goodness of whatever heart we want to point to can also be abused. And I do think that there is that opportunity for abuse, and by that I mean someone takes their 12 weeks, maybe they decide during those 12 weeks, you know what, I'm going to go do something else, and then they've got vacation, personal time, and other things that can then be converted into cash on their way out. And so I do at least want to make sure how, if a policy like this were to be put in place, how we deal with some of that downside issue that potentially comes from it. But I agree that, you know, in this day and age, the importance of children connecting with mothers and fathers is crucially important. For me, I'm much like our presiding commissioner. Our first child, I hung my own shingle out, and so there was no one for me to get the benefit from.
Mm-hmm.
I just had to figure out how to make it work, and my son's going to Rolla doing nuclear engineering, so I guess it worked out okay. But that being said, I understand the need, and but I just want to make sure that we deal with some of the downside issues that we study that. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Two of my three children went to Rolla also. Maybe there's something. There could be. Commissioner Johnson, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, just to clarify one thing, I think our county administrator picked up on it. This isn't just for paternity. This is paternity and maternity. Mom and dad, both. She's not talking about,
Yeah,
you're not talking
it
about
is-
just
yeah,
a father.
it-
We're talking about the
No,
father
this is
and
for both.
for
Right,
both.
it's paternities, which
Yeah.
would be parenting, right.
So, so what that means then, let's say somebody takes 12 weeks off with pay. Heaven forbid if we have a husband and wife in the county, they both take 12 days off, or 12 weeks off with pay. We pay them for the 12 weeks off, but their job still has to be done. which means we have to pay someone else for the 12 weeks that they're gone to do their job. So there is an economic impact to this, and one of the things that concerns me also is not only the taxpayer dollar, but it's a benefit for a certain class of people. That's people who want to have babies or are going to have babies. And don't get me wrong, I love it when private sector does this. And I wish we could do this without, I wish there was an easier way to do this, but again, my concern is it's taxpayer dollars for a specific group of people that the rest of the employees don't get to take advantage of. The rest of the employees don't get that. And when you talk about people that abuse it, and I'm from California, where this is happening in California, and the abuses, I've investigated abuses of this, it's horrible, the abuse. And so it has to be very, very specific, Loctite policy if we did go down that road. But I do really like your idea when you talk about class and comp studies and the overall benefits that we have and compared to other agencies, what we have. And maybe it's not just a policy like this, but maybe it's something where everybody gets more vacation or holiday time or something they could burn however they want, whether it's for when they have a baby or when they want to go on vacation or whatever. But that's a choice that we make, and it's a choice that I made when I had my 3 kids. And I am very concerned about putting me raising my children or anybody else raising their children on the backs of the taxpayers. I just don't know that that's right. Although all the things that Commissioner Thompson said, all the issues that are out there are legitimate issues, and I know that go with raising a family and are very difficult. If the taxpayers were on board with this, I'd be on board with it, but I don't know that they are, and that's really my big concern with this, and the fairness of it to everybody. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Commissioner Lawson, I believe you were seeking recognition.
I think that this is something that needs to be looked at seriously. But, here again, you look around the room here, I don't think Diana or me or Donna or a lot of the people sitting in this room are going to be off on pregnancy leave. I think that it's going to be a very small group. And here again, doing the research is a smart thing. We want to make sure when we present it and it's finished and done, that we're doing it properly. We're not, not alienating the citizens. All those people out there that are paying taxes have been in the same situation at one time or another, trying to get pregnancy leave, stay home long enough so they can, everything will work out properly for their families. I think that you look at something like this and you do look at other counties and what they're doing. The important thing is we talk all the time about what a great staff we have, and we do. We need to hold on to those people. If this is a benefit those people can get, then amen, let's do it. But I think here again, you monitor that policy just like you monitor anything else that we do. If you see that it's being abused, there's nothing that says that we can't go back the other way. So, I think while I'd like to see Diana do some research and see how others are done, I think this is something that we really do need to address, and I look forward to seeing it being set up for our folks so we can hang on to the good ones we got.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you. Yeah, I just once again want to totally agree with Commissioner Lawson. I think you're right. You're right on. We're talking about a fairly small number of folks per year, and so the risk of the policy somehow being abused, I think, is automatically sort of minimized by the small quantity we're talking about. And to your point, if we start to observe trends along that line, we can always, we're a nimble legislative body. We can adjust things very quickly. So I think the upside is significant, not just, to make us more competitive and make us an employer of choice. I think those are important considerations. But I think, again, to me, it comes back to, is this good for people? And there is, quite a plethora of social science now to prove that paid leave policies for maternity, paternity are a great benefit to young families to kids and to young parents and their families. So we also, have a broader sort of dynamic in this country and frankly across the developed world in which birth rates are declining fairly significantly. Policies like this can help to encourage young families to get started. And on the taxpayer piece, I'm, I think, the only member of the commission without kids and, pay my thousands of dollars in property tax per year to the school districts and, pay my federal taxes that pays for the, child tax credit and all that. And, I don't receive any of those benefits personally directly to me. What I do benefit from is having a healthy, robust society that exists around me. And I benefit from that significantly, and I want to see that continue for decades to come. So I think this policy can be one, tool in the toolbox to help with that issue. And again, thank Commissioner Thompson for leading on the issue.
Commissioner Withington.
What's our current PTO range?
Well, right now, if someone starts new, they get 3.69 sick hours per pay period. That's times 26 pay periods. It's about 2.5 weeks per year. And their vacation time starts out at 3.08 hours per pay period. So that's a little over 2 weeks. So a new person would have to work basically 3 years to build up the time to take their maternity leave.
But
they can also get FML, they can take it and take it unpaid if they don't have the time built up. Or there's also donating. If you're on FML, someone in your department could donate time.
What's the max? What do we max out at for sick days and PT and
It's 1,000 hours.
1,000 hours for both.
Yeah, that's 250 depending on the. Where's my? Is it 250? I don't have my book with me. I'd have to look. I think it's 250.
250 hours vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Johnson. I think that if we're going to implement this, we should look at how we can spread it out to other people, like maybe increasing their sick time and PTO and stuff like that. I mean,
And it does build up as, the years that you were
Yeah.
here, it increases. But are you saying like higher when someone starts?
Yeah, I think just increase it a little bit. So like, I don't know, maybe give them an extra week or something. I don't know, every year. I don't know. I mean, it's something we'd need to discuss. But I think though, it also, we're a pretty small body. So if it is starting to be abused, I think we could easily address it. But three's enough for me. I'm not having any kids. So, but it's a small number. I don't think it's going to be abused.
Very well, if there.
I'm sorry, if I could interject.
Go right ahead, please.
And I appreciate people are thinking abuse, and that does happen. But in more cases, what I've seen in my career is people have the best intention of coming back to work after having a child, and then as they get closer to returning to work, they don't want to leave the child. And then they look at the cost of daycare, and they do the math, and so sometimes they don't come back, although they intended to. So, there are those that take that situation versus not an intentional abuse of the policy. It's just things change once you have that child and you've been with it for 12 weeks. It's very difficult to come back to the workforce. And we know childcare and daycare is an issue in the country and is very expensive. And so sometimes people do the math and say, it's better in interest to stay home with the child permanently for a while. So it's not just abuse that we would want to think about as we write the policy.
Have you seen any policies that say that if you use this, you have to come back and stay a certain amount of time?
Kim and I actually talked about that. That would be one thing. I have not seen any policies at all. This just came up, and so we haven't done really any research on it. So we'd want to start looking at those kind of policies. But and whether legally we could do that and say, you're right, if you're paid for 12 weeks and you come back for 2 weeks and then you turn in your resignation, is it written such that now you have to be here 6 months? And if you leave before that 6 months, then we take whatever your vacation and sick leave on the books, that's not part of your payout, to compensate for the 12 weeks? I mean, I think there are ways that we can address those issues.
Yeah, because we used to get a sabbatical at Cerner, and if you took it, you couldn't, and you left within a 12-month period after taking it, you had to pay it back, so.
It would be a little bit almost structured, as you all know, we did the retention incentive for employees for a year, and if you left, we prorated it if you didn't stay here a year. And so, it could be something like that. We could look at that. So we'll look at all sorts of policies. There are public agencies across the country that have paternity policies, and we can certainly look at and try and, bring forward to you all what's best practice.
Well, if there's one thing that is undeniable that came out of this discussion, that is, children change everything. I don't think there's many ways, that's fairly indisputable with that. If there are no further questions or comments to be made, I'd like to go to Commissioner Thompson to round off our discussion, and then the question I will be asking is, it sounds like where we're going with this is we're going to ask staff to do additional research. So after your comments, Commissioner, I'll see if that is indeed the will of the commission, and we'll just kind of close the discussion on that. So please proceed.
No, of course, I'll keep this brief because I know we're all itching to get out of here. But I want to thank the commission for having this very open, very positive conversation about the paternity leave policy. I feel like we can move in a forward in a manner that we can get this accomplished and do good things here in Clay County. And I know there's other counties right now who are implementing this, and I'm happy to share any research I have, and I've got numerous amounts of it, and I'll send it over to you guys. I don't want to just bog everyone down with it today. But I think there's a clear path through this, and we will find it. And I think if it's important enough for the governor and our state to look into and put resources into, we can also do that here for our employees. So I want to thank you all, and that's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson, for raising the issue. Did I state what you would see
Yes.
going forward? And that is that we would ask staff to research it and then come back to us with the results of that research and any recommendations. Does that sound reasonable as far as what your expectations would be?
That's fine.
Is that the consensus of the commission? I see head nods all around. Administrator, do you feel comfortable with that level of instruction?
I think we do.
Very good. With that, then, we will conclude the discussion on paternity policy, and we will go to our next discussion item, which is a parks update. Administrator?
Yes, in following our policy that we've done, once a month we bring you a couple of departments to give you a high-level update on the activities within their department, and they've all been given direction to be quick. As we know, kickoff is like in a few minutes, and so I'd like to introduce Parks Director Mike Driscoll, who's going to give you an overview of the parks, which you're very familiar with many of the things that go on in our park system because Parks is before you, but we want to share with some things you may not know about the park system.
Please proceed.
Good evening, Mike Driscoll, Clay County Park Director. And there it is. Just a quick overview. As a department, we employ about 48 full-time personnel, and currently we're a few down, and along with HR, we are trying very hard to find and retain good employees for the Parks Department. In the summertime season, we try to usually have 75 to 100 temporary employees. We have also been struggling to find those, but we do the best we can with the people we can find. All areas use seasonal help for fee collection, historic sites, tours, and just maintenance and golf course maintenance. So we try to stay as much up on staff as we can. Smithville Lake garners most of our attention. The 7,200 acre surface acre lake, and we lease about 4,000, maybe a little more acres for recreational purposes from the Corps of Engineers. Corps visitation numbers for the project, we hit about 1.82 million. 1.82, yes, and most of that was in day use within the park area. And we had, you can see about 182,000 plus overnight stay at the campgrounds within the park. The visitation numbers at the Smithville Lake Project is second only to the Truman Lake Project within the Kansas City District. And there's three main areas at the Smithville Lake Park. Crows Creek, it includes campgrounds, shelters for rental in the picnic arm. We have two very nice playgrounds, one in the picnic arm and one in the campground, and features also a ADA accessible fishing dock. The Camp Branch area, where the park office is at the Camp Branch Marina also, it also has campgrounds. Sailboat Cove is just north of the area, along with the Kansas City Trap Association. The Kelsey Short Group Camp and Nature Center gets a lot of attention now. A lot of people coming out to visit, and the group camping is still going pretty strong with our SCA big group event and scouts and various other groups. The Little Platte area, Little Platte Park, contains two very well maintained and by our people, maintained golf courses, and doing very well right now, the Outlaw and the Posse. The Paradise Point Marina is also within that park, and our restaurant run this year by vendor Burley's Deli. Happy to have somebody there again. We finished the dog park a couple of years ago, and that gets a lot of use. And we also have 3 disc golf courses within the area, and of course, a beach that gets used a lot. And the trails system on the whole is very well, it's occupied all the time, summer, winter, all the time. And you can go through a list of numbers there and see, according to the core data, what the numbers look like, but it's very rare that you're out there and you don't see somebody at one of the trailheads, or a lot of times more than just a few on the trails at any given time, summer or winter. And not to forget our eastern parks, Rocky Hollow Park. These are all over east of Kearney. Very nice lake, just a couple of ball fields, one shelter for rental, and it still gets used by a lot of people just for fishing, and a nice place to go. Tris Falls is a very nice little park with 4 shelters for rental, and it has a playground also, a very nice playground. Those shelters are rented almost every week throughout the season. And the Claybrook Park, just across from the James Farm, has a very nice big shelter for rental and a very nice restroom. Historic sites, a very important part of Clay County Parks, with the James Farm, Jesse James' birthplace, making up headlining that list. They have approximately 10,000 visitors each year. Every state in the union has had somebody there, and about 40 different countries so far on the list of people that have visited. Mount Gilead Church and School is a place where we have some school programs for period school programs, and the church still gets weddings and some other events as well. Ferris Farm, we just had a very nice event out there yesterday. Restored home farm. It has 160 acres. Most of that is in pasture lease, and we just maintain it as directed as an educational and informational area about farms from basically early 1900 period on out. Very nice exhibits and very well taken care of by historic sites. And here in town, right across the corner, James Bank Museum gets more than 2,000 visitors a year. Maintained, we operate it for the owners of the building. Just a quick list there of some of the major things we've done in the last few years. We trying very hard to maintain and improve all aspects of the parks, from new restrooms to road resurfacing, and just basically trying to improve every aspect of it for our patrons. And just a list there of events, most of them are usually year to year. Many of them have been annual events for many years. So we're happy to host these events, and our shelters, we probably rent, they're rented 200 or 300 times a year for personal, get-togethers, reunions, weddings, whatever. So that's it.
Are there any questions or comments? Commissioner Carpenter.
Well, I just want to thank you, Mike, for the presentation. It was a great presentation, and just want to thank you for all of your many years of service to Clay County in your role. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion or comment?
And, I'm sorry, and
Yes,
if I
ma'am.
could share, this may be one of Director Driscoll's last presentations to the commission after almost 40 years of service to Clay County. He is decided he might want to retire and maybe rent one of those fishing boats. So, and so we appreciate everything he has done all these years in serving our parks and our residents of Clay County.
Thank you very much for your service. That brings us to public administrator update.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
again-
Oh, okay.
Nope, that's fine. Again, one of our departments presenting to the commission this evening is our Public Administrator's Office. I'd like to introduce our Public Administrator, Alexa Summit, who's going to give you an overview of the services of this department.
Please proceed.
And I'm going to give you a brief overview
Thanks.
of what our office does and who we serve. So our office has 11 full-time employees, 1 part-time employee, 1 part-time attorney, and a full-time sheriff's deputy assigned to our office. Currently, we serve about 305 active cases, and that changes almost every day. So, like I said, this is going to be a brief explanation of what we do, and if you already know what we do, then great. But a lot of the people I present to have never even heard the word public administrator. So, what is a public administrator? So, I am the court-appointed guardian for and conservator and personal representative. So, guardian is for a person, conservator is for assets, and personal representative is for deceased estates. Everything that we do goes through the probate court. So, everything from an application to death or restoration goes through the probate code, chapter 475. I'm going to explain a little bit about the process of how I get involved in people's lives. So first, there is an application. Anyone can make an application through the probate court, but they have to have an attorney to make that application. So family members, hospitals, Department of Health and Senior Services, Children's Division, and the Department of Mental Health can make an application to appoint a guardian and conservator. And it doesn't always have to be me, but a lot of the times I'll get applied for if there isn't a better alternative. After an application is filed, the court will appoint an attorney. The alleged incapacitated adult is given the opportunity to consent to the appointment or contest the appointment and even request a jury trial, which is very rare. I've never seen one. So, after an attorney is appointed, a hearing is held, evidence is heard, and the judge makes a determination on whether the individual is incapacitated or not, and whether or not he will appoint a family member or myself. After being appointed, we make it a big priority to receive as much information as we can. So if the individual comes to a hearing, we try to meet with them immediately. We set up a case file, and if they're not at the hearing, we try to go to the hospital to meet them immediately as well. And then we start making decisions to ensure their safety and well-being. Sometimes wards require hospitalization at the time of appointment due to their instability and being in active crisis. So immediately being appointed, we get to work. All right, duties of a guardian. So if I'm appointed as a guardian, I am in charge of care, treatment, habilitation, education, support, and maintenance. And the powers and duties include that, but are not limited to the following. I assure that the ward resides in the best and least restrictive setting reasonably available. I assure that the ward receives medical care and other services that are needed. And I promote the care, comfort, safety, health, welfare of the ward and provide required consents on behalf of the ward. There's a lot of planning and care that goes into making these decisions, and every single person is different. And so we take a lot of time and care in every decision that we're presented with. Right, and duties of a conservator are a bit different since it's dealing with assets. Once I'm appointed, I have to file an inventory within 30 days of appointment, and that has to include all their assets, bank accounts, vehicles, and even homes. Annually, I have to file an annual settlement with the court to account for all income, distributions, and assets. And at that time, we also apply for fees. So we keep track of everything that we do on each ward. And so if they don't have any money to pay fees, they're just set aside. But there are times where individuals are not indigent and we're able to pay fees back to the county. We apply for government benefits, including Social Security, supplemental security income, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, and we ensure that they remain eligible. We also do apply for VA benefits for some individuals that we're guardian for and ensure that they're receiving any pensions. We receive court permission for large purchases such as burial. We try to make sure that if an individual does have money that needs to be spent to keep them eligible for benefits, that we will buy pre-need burial plans so that that's taken care of at time of death for their family members. If an individual is able to drive, we have to have court permission for vehicles and anything over $5,000. Our office is audited annually, internally through our review of annual settlements. Through the probate court, they audit our annual settlements that we file with them on an annual basis. By the Clay County Auditor, by the Veterans Administration, and also the Social Security Administration. So we are thoroughly audited from all entities. Right, the type of cases that we cover in our office. We are conservator for minor conservatorships. Normally, we only handle adults, but there are times where there's an insurance settlement and no one's able to manage those assets for minors. We will remain conservator for those individuals until they turn 18. And we only have 14 of those cases, so it's not very common. And then the rest of the cases are either a combination of guardian only, conservator only, or guardian and conservator. And personal representative estates, which we have 7 of, and those are deceased estates that we cover. And the type of disabilities that we serve, generally the individuals that are needing our care have a severe mental illness, severe enough to inhibit their ability to make decisions, an aging-related diagnosis such as Alzheimer's or dementia, a developmental disability, or a medical condition that causes incapacity such as brain injury, Huntington's disease, or Parkinson's. And that's a brief overview of what we do in our office. Do you have any questions?
Thank you for your presentation. Sometimes it's easy for us to not be as aware. You're not quite as high profile, but that doesn't mean the work you do is terribly important. So we appreciate you coming forward and giving us a more clear idea of some of the services you provide to some of our citizens who are obviously in distressful situations. Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I just want to extend my total thanks and gratitude to you and the folks who work with you. I know how huge of a role you play in the personal lives of a lot of folks, and I know it's a lot of work. I had a few chances over the years to chat with one of your predecessors, Debbie Gwynn, who had that role. I'm sure you know Debbie. And I know that it's a lot of work, and I know that it takes a toll, and I know how big of a role you play in the lives of people. So even if everybody doesn't know what y'all are doing, know that some do, and we're very grateful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Further comments or discussion? Seeing none, thank you very much. We appreciate that. That brings us to the conclusion of our discussion items, and that brings us to county administrator comments.
Just that the commission's next meeting is next Thursday, September 14th at 6 PM here in the chambers.
Very good. Commissioner comments, Commissioner Wagner.
Go Chiefs.
Commissioner Lawson? Commissioner Withington?
Is there a time limit? Because I'll start reading the Declaration of Independence or something just to make everybody stay a little late.
I did discuss with council on what it would take to, if there was a parliamentary procedure related to Chiefs games.
Okay. No, I have nothing.
Commissioner Carpenter?
No.
Commissioner Thompson? Commissioner Johnson?
Real quickly, two things. First, I want to say happy birthday to our colleague, Commissioner Withington. It's actually yesterday was his birthday, but, so late by one day, but happy. It's big 4-0 for him. So welcome to 4-0. And the other thing, on a personal note, I want to say today, I actually literally, before I walked in here, I buried my first horse. And a lot of people in this county know my horse. He's one of the tallest horses in the state, 19 hands high, big Belgian draft horse, sweetest thing in the world, gentle giant. His name is Captain America. And that's why I'm wearing my Captain America t-shirt tonight. So everybody knows that's why I'm wearing my t-shirt instead of a suit. So rest in peace, Captain America.
I just had a couple of things. We got a thank you card that was addressed to the commission. If anybody has not had a chance to see it, I'm going to set it right here. The other thing is we got a publication in. This is the county news. I don't know that everybody gets this. I think what I'm going to be trying to do is to set publications like this that I think all commissioners should have the opportunity to look at in the mailroom, kind of underneath the table where the baskets are. And then finally, I certainly want to make sure that everybody is aware, and I'm sure everyone is, that Monday is, of course, 9/11, and that is a date that I think we all need to commemorate in our own ways. And if you are able to go to some sort of a remembrance, certainly be able to remember the tragedies of that day. With that, unless there are further comments,